This is the lecture about biodiversity in agricultural landscapes. We are turning our farmland into a desert. We are losing everything and we need that nature, that biodiversity. The agriculture needs pollinators and the soil fauna. Without that, ultimately we will die. Intensive agricultural practices are a danger, not just to birds, but also to people, butterflies, the soil, and everything else. These are some quotes about biodiversity loss, which is becoming a worldwide problem. If we want to make sure that our planet is livable for future generations, we should try to balance the functions of our landscapes in a sustainable way. An important challenge is sustainable food production. But how do we take on this challenge? Before we look into this, you first need to learn more about agriculture and the consequences of current farming practices for grassland ecosystems. The world population of 7.5 billion people is still growing. To feed everyone, we are becoming more and more dependent on agriculture for food and other important materials. Agriculture is another word for farming. It includes both growing and harvesting crops and raising livestock for human use. The three main types of agricultural land use are arable farming, horticulture, and livestock farming. Arable farming is when farmers plow the land, sow seeds, and grow plants to harvest. Some examples of crops grown on arable land are corn, wheat, rice, and potatoes. In horticulture, food is grown in greenhouses. This is used to regulate climate conditions when outside conditions are unfavorable. It is mostly used for fruits and vegetables. Livestock farming is keeping livestock for producing animal products, such as meat, milk, eggs, and wool. Modern agriculture is typically focused on producing a maximum amount of food as efficiently as possible. This is called intensive farming. It is the opposite of extensive farming, which is a production system that focuses on low yields. Extensive farming was the predominant type of agriculture in traditional times. Traditional farming methods are characterized by a high variation in crops or animals, the use of simple tools such as an axe, a hoe, or a stick, and a low input of fertilizer. Modern farming practices include the production of few types of food, the use of modern technology to increase efficiency, and a high input of fertilizer. In fisheries, the traditional method is to catch small numbers of fish with simple fishing rods or small hand-thrown nets. Modern fishing is characterized by large motorized fishing boats that use mechanized nets. The size of the arable fields and pastures also changed with time. Traditionally, the fields were small and scattered throughout the landscape. To facilitate large machinery, smaller plots of land have been merged into larger ones. Water is also consistently drained from the soil in order to make the land more accessible to machines. Agriculture that is designed to maximize yield is called intensive farming. Intensive farming practices have a major impact on the ecosystems around them. Many species that feel at home in agricultural habitats are under pressure. An important group is farmland birds, which have shown a decline in numbers since 1980, but other groups are also affected. In the Netherlands, dairy farming is the main type of agriculture. To produce milk, cows are pastured in grassland meadows. Agricultural grasslands form an important ecosystem for many species of insects, birds, and mammals. This community of animals feels most at home in habitats with a wide variety of flowering plants. This type of agricultural landscape used to be common in the Netherlands. The community of grassland species can be represented in a food web. In flower-rich grasslands, the number of first-order producers is high. The variation of plants provide the ecosystem with a high quality of primary food source because these plants produce many types of food, such as leaf, litter, seeds, and nectar. The variation in plant-based food sources provided by the first-order producers attract a large number of animals with a plant-based diet. These animals are the first-order consumers. In turn, the higher number of first-order consumers support large numbers of second-order consumers and third-order consumers. In these grassland ecosystems, we find typical species of animals and plants. One category that is represented in these grasslands is meadow birds. These range from songbirds and ducks to birds of prey and waders. One of the most iconic wader species is the black-tailed godwit. It is the national bird of the Netherlands. For black-tailed godwits, healthy grasslands are important because they are rich in food. With their long beak, adult godwits dig for worms and other organisms in the soil. Godwit chicks hunt for flying insects that are attracted to flowers. Over the last decades, we have seen a steady decline in numbers of several meadowbird species in the Netherlands. This is especially worrying in the case of the black-tailed godwit, because it breeds almost exclusively in the Netherlands. The decline in meadowbirds is related to the drastic change in agricultural landscapes. Most dairy farmers pasture their cows in meadows with one type of protein-rich grass, called ryegrass, because milk that is rich in protein has a higher quality. These so-called monocultures, which is one species of grass, are mown many times in one season to stimulate growth. Moreover, high amounts of fertilizer are used. Dairy farming is the main type of agriculture in the Netherlands. Because of intensification, we have become extremely fast and efficient in producing dairy. The Netherlands are in second place in dairy export rankings, while the United States are in fifth place. An impressive feat if you compare the size of these two countries. More than 80% of Dutch milk is exported. Current dairy farming practices and the change in landscapes from flower-rich grasslands to monocultures have a major effect on grassland ecosystems. To understand this, we can look at the food web in an intensively farmed grassland. In monoculture landscapes, the dominant first-order producer is ryegrass. A low variation in producers means that there are less plant-based food sources available. In other words, the quality of the primary food source in this ecosystem is low. Because the quality of the primary food source is low, fewer first-order consumers can be supported. In turn, fewer second-order and third-order consumers can be supported in this ecosystem. In this lesson module, you will compare biodiversity in two agricultural landscapes. The one on the left is categorized as an extensive landscape, illustrated by flower-rich grasslands and a complex food web. The one on the right is categorized as an intensive landscape, illustrated by a monoculture grassland and a simple food web. This concludes the lecture about biodiversity in agricultural landscapes. You can now continue with the assignments. Good luck!